podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Remember, the 5th of November, you're watching a bit of an animal here on the Global Gainlines YouTube channel. We've got the full team this week. Explosive episode waiting for you. Let's start the show. All right, guys. Glad to see everyone's here. South Africa, Sushi, the referee and Bowden Barrett colluding with one another. Let's get stuck in. Lisa B, glad to see you back. You weren't here last week. You missed the Good Oaks assessment. But it kind of makes sense that you weren't here last week because when we took a break, you were actually still on the Global Guidelines YouTube channel. Like and subscribe because you packed your little suitcase and you got your passport and you took a trip to Yap City and you were on the Women's Rugby Treehouse bumper episode of award ceremony. So yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, nice to be back. And yeah, it was a fun. If people haven't watched that episode, it's not short, but it is a lot of fun, lots of laughs. So head over there and have a look at all of us chatting it up.
All right, guys. Topic number one this week, South Africa. Oh, shall I say the Japanese All-Stars versus Japan at Wembley of all places, in the quaint Japanese town of London. Yeah. Before we start, we're going to go around and ask everybody's favorite Japanese and or sushi meal. So, Lisa B, what is your favorite?
Yeah, so strange as it might seem to people from other countries, we do actually have vegetarians in South Africa. I am one of them, a living, breathing example. So I like having a vegetarian hand roll with lots of wasabi.
Demikosi, what's your favorite?
Contrary to popular belief, I actually do not like sushi at all.
Ah,
If I'm gonna go with seafood, I'm gonna go for olives.
fair enough. We're all different. We won't hold it against you. Maybe Jean will. Jean, your favorite sushi and or Japanese meal?
It's a close tie between sushi and Japanese whiskey, but seeing as whiskey is not a meal, as I keep being told, I have a soft spot for deep fried California rolls. But not like the salmon gets deep fried and then put into like the whole roll goes into the oil, comes out. Yeah, that is if I one day go due to cholesterol, there'll be a picture of that on my grave.
Yeah, same for me. I'm also quite a partial to California rolls in general. Sushi in general, I quite like. And yeah, poke bowls and stuff like that. Salmon poke bowls generally my go-to. So yeah. Domo arigato, Mr. Robato. These would be your thoughts on South Africa. Pretty much a warm-up game. What can we take from this excursion in London?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question actually, because for all the hype and the talk about 2015 and Eddie getting up and apparently, he was of the opinion that they might overpower us. For all of that, I felt almost like it was a contingency plan, if that makes sense. So like playing Colby at 15 and all of the kind of interesting things with hybrid players and all of that. It's almost as if this was a dry run for possibly things going wrong, people getting injured and whatever at the World Cup. So that's kind of how I looked at it, to see what might happen if we do get a big injury or something goes wrong. So it was interesting from that point of view. And then looking especially at the back line and how we were under the high ball, which was excellent, but also sharing the load between Colby and Sasha, everyone kind of working together more than just in a moving around more, shall I say, in the back line and fielding a lot of those things. So that was interesting. And then something that might seem a little bit, I don't know, not so important, but what impressed me, let's start there. What impressed me the most is a very small thing, but the fact that we didn't get one penalty for a high shot. For as players like Argia and Lewitt and all of these people to play an entire 80-minute game against Japan and keep that discipline, to not have one penalty or one, I mean, there was that handoff that Wilco did, but honestly, it was nothing. But I thought that was very, very good. And they're coming from the beginning of the year where our discipline wasn't necessarily so good. I don't know, it's something that kind of stuck with me, and I really appreciated that. And I think it was a very good showcase for the team and how they can actually pull together and keep their discipline going. And
Excellent
then
point.
my last one point that I wanted to make is, which is so weird. I I had to do a double take on social media with people praising Marnie for distributing the ball this week and having a bit of a go at Sasha for being Windgat or whatever. I think both things are ridiculous. Marnie has always been a good distributor of the ball. I know, there was a whole onslaught of people not appreciating him for the player that he is, in my opinion. But I think people really have to, criticize a bad play, or if someone didn't have a good game, that's all fine. But going after players and, you know, I don't know. I don't get it, is basically what I'm trying to say. Sasha is a very good player. He's been getting much better um, at team play and not overplaying like he did last year at the Stormers. But we have to also understand that, and you can see it in that first try that he scored, or in the ball that he intercepted where Japan almost scored. He just sees stuff that other players don't. And so if that means he has to be Windgat to do that, I'm all for him being Windgat. I don't think he is, but yeah, people must relax a bit, I think.
Yeah. Social media being full of sort of bad faith arguments is nothing new, and it's unfortunate. We do want Sasha Feinberg and Ngoma not to sort of fall into that trap of some of the younger players we've had in South Africa and other teams as well, where they've lost their way. I can think of a few in England as well. So yeah, we want a balance but there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, but I think he's treading that line reasonably well now. But we need to ensure that our young players get the right mentorship so they don't like fall into sort of the unfortunate track that say Sibusiso Nkosi fell into more recently. Jean, do you feel this was a solid start to the tour, considering more tougher games are coming up?
Yeah, I think there's three things that we can walk away with from this game. Number one, it was as good a place as any. I think in terms of proper rugby opposition, and seeing if Esterhuizen could match, if he could keep pace with the pace requirements and the movement requirements of flanker, I think Japan was as good a place as any, because I don't think anyone doubts his strength, right? He's got the strength and the size. He's essentially Peter Steff with more weight added. Um, so I don't know, maybe he's bullying Peter Steff. That might be something that we break on this podcast as news. But
Is that even possible?
I don't know if anyone bullies Peter Steff, but Yeah, I mean, look, so we know that the under Esterhazy flanker experiment, there's some validation to it, right? And I mean, we can go on the whole spiel of Eddie and his positionless rugby and getting defeated by someone doing exactly that, right? Being the true meaning of hybrid player. Um, but I think it was validation, and I think it was a good place to start guys like Zach Porthen and to develop the feel for having a mobility based game plan. Because there are going to be, if we just for a second step away from the Autumn Nation series and we just sort of glance over the horizon at the Rugby World Cup, you're going to come up against second tier teams, and points difference is what has always been a detriment of the Springboks because we were grinding out close wins. So if it comes down to having the same points as the person you're sharing first position with, typically points difference is the decider, right? And in those cases, we really need to pile on the score, as harsh as it is. I mean, I didn't expect us to go to 61. I was fairly confident we're going to beat Japan, but that their defense would be more solid than it was, and that they'd be much better under the high ball. My memory of 2019 was a competent team that, yeah, sure, we mauled them for 40 odd 60 odd meters, but their backline was potent. They were good under the high ball. So yeah, I think there is worth in this, and there's validity in it. And I'll refer to a metaphor that someone taught me in running is the longer or the shorter the race is, right? The faster the slower you need to start. Meaning if you're running a marathon, you get to start fast because you've got 42 kilometers. There's chance to catch your breath. But we're playing a 4-match series. So for us, having a slow start, getting the guys to just be connected is excellent. Like it's excellent. I think it gives them a cohesiveness advantage that we might have over the other teams because Japan is essentially the only team who we're facing that played recently. The rest of our opposition hasn't played recently. They've been standing still since July. So, I think there's and I'm sure we're going to discuss it now, but when you're looking at the big names coming up for us, there's definitely some validity to it.
Let me go see your thoughts on this game at Wembley Stadium. By the way, the attendance was 23,243 paying customers. It's a 90,000 seater stadium. However, uh, there were multiple other games in London at the same time. England versus Australia, notably, and as well as the Barbarians versus
All
New
Blacks
Zealand
All
actually.
second
Blacks
team. Yeah,
actually.
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry. You meant Stormers B-side.
Very true.
I thought
Yes,
it was the
yeah,
Barbarians.
yeah. We're actually gonna have a look at that as well because even John Dobson was Lisa B's personal favorite. Evan Ross was playing, so we'll get to that later. Let me go see your thoughts.
I think I'm just gonna echo what everyone was saying. It kind of felt like a practice match. Um, More on what Lisa B was saying in the beginning, where it kind of felt like in case of emergency, where our first choice prop goes down, what do we do? Because you saw Steenkamp was there. Zach also played really well. Ludiaga was I think it was like the top tackler for like the whole match. So you could see, yeah, just to also to add what John was saying, is like they were kind of blending the combinations to see how they would play. And also I'm not saying Japan is a bad team, but they were trying to see how you would react if you were kind of like thrown into a situation. So I feel like they kind of played really well. I don't have much to say. Like I said, it really, really felt like it was like a practice match, but everyone did their part. Malcolm Marks, Jasper Wiese were leading the Lions in turnovers. Like honestly, that match really felt like a practice match to me. But what I'm trying to say is that everyone kind of played their part. Even you saw Sia more energetic than ever. He was running, he was carrying. It was a really good match.
Yeah. We have to sort of give understanding of where Japan find themselves this time. They've been better at times, but obviously after the pandemic, they've had quite a challenge getting high level opposition with travel restrictions and stuff like that. So they're very much, we're 2 years out from a World Cup. They're very much at a building stage again, having to rebuild constantly. But they've got a semblance of a good team, and they might well peak at said World Cup. So, Themikosi, we'll stick with you, and we'll move swiftly on to the game in Chicago, where, oh, shout out to all my friends who ran the New York Marathon this weekend, um, where your New Zealand put on the afterburners in 60 minutes and beat Ireland in Chicago on a very dodgy pitch, by the way. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it looked weird. It looked all those okay. I kind of liked all those lines. It kind of made you judge. We could tell a forward pass more clearly because there was clearly more lines on the field. But honestly, I think in terms of the build up that they were trying to do before the match and before like this was supposed to be like the greatest rival, it kind of the first 60 minutes of that match didn't live up to that. Ireland were trying. Like I saw, okay, so Ireland did this phase play where they try phase. Then when the opportunity came, they were trying to kick over, but it never felt like they could kick at the right time. Sometimes the ball went too far, sometimes it went too short. New Zealand were dealing well with the scramble defense. And looking back on the match, I feel like Ireland, if they took some of the chances, like the early penalties, and kicked it to Paul, maybe the score would reflect differently. But I think it came down to like most of the matches of this week, it came down to the bomb squad. Like as soon as New Zealand's bench got on the field, it changed the whole entirety of the game. It changed the whole momentum, the flow, and everything. And if I'm right, I think all the people that came off the bench probably scored. So at least like two or three of them. So yeah, I think it's a game where it was decided by the bench.
John, if you had to pick between Cam Roigard and your friend Kobus Reinach, who are you picking?
Now I'll have to go with Kobus hier kom spoed Reinagh. Um, look, Cam Roigard is fantastic. And as far as being a game changer, um, I think he is. I would put him in the same grouping as I put a guy like Tate McDermott from Australia. They are not necessarily the best nine you're going to find out there, but if they step onto the field, the team dynamic changes around them. They change the game, sort of like a early years Faf de Klerk when he was constantly going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, right? It's that same effect. But yeah, tough contest, eh? But I like Reinach. I like that he's got some old school nine in him. Not scared to like Faf. He's not scared of a big boy. Um, we'll sort it out at ground level anyway. But yeah, I think Tembi Nkosi is spot on, and he touched on something that actually I think is quickly becoming Ireland's Achilles is the fact that most of the rugby world has shifted around and realized that the bench isn't something to be shy of. The bench isn't your dumping ground for what you consider the second place players or the guys just there to cruise out the match. The bench are the guys that's supposed to bring impact and change and it's like if rugby is wrestling and chess at the same time, the bench is like having a partner you can tap in the second half who is an absolute menace at playing chess and just happens to be a great sumo wrestler at the same time. So I think that is quickly becoming. I mean, Ireland are in a very weird place. They golden generation who won the Six Nations, who were considered to be the one of the two incumbents for the previous Rugby World Cup, are aging out really fast. And that raises questions about coaching. It raises questions about the unwillingness to change. But I do feel for them. I think if any country lives in Ireland's mind rent free, it's New Zealand. It's absolutely New Zealand. It's like they live there rent free, and they know they've climbed that Everest before, and they've beaten them, and now they can't get to that level again. Meanwhile, for New Zealand, being beaten by Ireland was a humiliation, and they sort of turned around and said never again. Right? They took it as their own personal rugby national tragedy to who these little Irish people with their dark beer happened to beat us at our game. This shall not happen ever again. And they went full Gandalf. So yeah, I think it's a weird match, and Ireland definitely weren't helped by that red card. I mean, it raises questions when referees with all the cameras in the world, and we spoke about the previous controversy in the URC where the referees didn't have that. This is a test grade stadium. They've got everything they need. There's a TMO, everything, and they come to the conclusion that this is somehow deliberate when anybody with two Mark 1 eyeballs can see that Barrett wasn't expecting the ball. Tyke Byrne wasn't even looking at Barrett, and when he looked back, he just happened to see him coming, and he sort of braced. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like Ireland needs to mentally adjust. Um, they need to adapt to the way the bench needs to be used because it's definitely it. You're not going to compete in the top four if the bench doesn't have a purpose beyond being there in case of injury. The bench needs to have a purpose. Um, and yeah, I think the red card just marred the occasion because I do think after that red card, Ireland sort of stepped it up a level. And after 10 minutes, they started sinking away, and it was New Zealand's game.
Yeah. Lisa B, from your perspective, having watched the game, did Bowden Barrett call Mark deep in his heart? Because he didn't do it with his mouth or his arm.
Calling a mark is a state of mind. Don't you know this? Um, yeah, that was very, very funny. So yeah, it was such a weird game. I was really amped for it. And I have to be honest, I was disappointed. I think most people were. Um, Also, like I know we're not really ones to speak with DSTV's sometimes doing weird camera angles, and especially the Japan game this weekend was terrible in terms of production, but also yo, the New Zealand Ireland one was just as bad. Like weird zooming in on things, and anyway, that maybe that's just me. Um but I very much agree with John. You made such a good point. And the thing with Ireland as well is, success is not measured in rugby specifically, but in many things. Success isn't necessarily measured by doing one thing. It's about how you back it up. And so I've really enjoyed seeing Ireland getting better, and also, the little bit of a rivalry between us and them developing. And I think not having the players coming through their systems, even though they do have very good and solid systems, I'm not an expert. I don't really know what's going on, but there's a disconnect between bringing up players and then having this aging team that just look flat, really. There's no other way to say it, and it brings me no joy to say that. Um, and very interesting for New Zealand. with so many, well, quite a few guys coming back from injury, and really seeing a very different team that played against us um, in the rugby championship. So I really enjoyed, seeing Tamati Williams coming. He was so good. I don't know what it is about him, but I really enjoy watching him for some reason. Um, and Cortez Ratima, and well, the whole bench, like you said, they just brought this energy after it felt like New Zealand was kind of hitting a brick wall in a way. That wall might have been the ref. Um, and then, but that energy that the bench brought on is something that's great. It was lovely to see that last 20 minutes.
Have you been spending a lot of time with Tembi Nkosi, because you're rattling off these New Zealand names like no problem. I mean, we know he's we know he's half Kiwi.
Yeah,
But
we're
I think
gonna.
there's been some cahooting here.
People need
I
to get in the
promise I'm
comments to suggest that we get a Super Rugby podcast here on the Global Game Line. Super Rugby starts on the 13th of February, the day before Valentine's Day. So if we see Timbinkosi and Lisa B on a special new podcast, they'll be surprised.
I will bum out. I promise I don't really know a lot about this, but it's just things that stick in my mind. But
Yeah,
Tembe and Nkosi would
hopefully,
be great.
exactly. I agree. We're working on
No,
it.
no comment on that. No comment.
We can't let the cat out the bag. Um, So yeah, hopefully Max Jorgenson's not watching because he's gonna feel a bit sad that he's no longer Lisa B's favorite from down under. But yeah, Ireland in particular, there are some issues. What's weird is that New Zealand lost this, New Zealand won this game and Ireland lost. But the podcasts that I've watched and listened to, both media houses seem to, or fan podcasts even, seem to be a bit down. I mean, there's a lot to work on for both teams. I was impressed though by the Ireland scrum half again, Jameson Gibson Park. I think all the Irish players with sort of New Zealand connections had a solid game, like James Lowe. Bandiaki didn't get the chance to really make a massive impact off the bench. I thought Jack Crowley actually started well and then faded. I thought it was good that it's probably a 20-minute red card because I mean, if you get a red card so early and the team has to play with 14 men for the entire game, that's going to be a little it's going to
Yeah.
spoil the opportunity to actually watch it. And from a neutral's perspective, I have a great deal of respect for both teams within a rugby perspective and both countries within just a global perspective. Both countries I'd love to work in one day, that type of thing. So I mean, we want to see these teams do well, but there is questions about how Ireland have approached their succession planning. Were the coaching staff so obsessed with the Lions tour and in a rugby context, have things shifted from a 4-year planning towards a World Cup to a 2-year planning towards a World Cup? Because there's an argument to say 4 years is a bit too long. And then obviously people look at Rassi who had to do it over 2 years, having taken over from Alistair Coetzee, and then having a very disruptive period between the 2019 World Cup and the 2023 World Cup because of the pandemic, unfortunately. But yeah, Stu McCloskey did really well. Unfortunately, he had to go off and he's got a hamstring injury. I didn't see a massive impact from Dan Sheehan. Parts of me was watching this game and not sure who to root for. And then the Irish players started to sort of cheer clearance kicks from New Zealand. And I sort of see the Irish players wearing the Leinster kit. And as much as I don't dislike Leinster per se, I also don't like them being a bit arrogant. So then things shifted to the last 30 minutes. I was like, I think I'll back New Zealand. And I think New Zealand are going to come back strong. And that's actually what transpired. New Zealand also quite stoked to have Leinster Fire Nuku back. He made a massive impact, having just returned because he played in the New Zealand sort of version of the Currie Cup, so now he can actually play for New Zealand, even though he recently played in France. Overall, New Zealand are now, and Timikusi is probably stoked about this, still very much on track for a Grand Slam, and to me, that's going to be exciting to watch. We'll look further up in the episode at the game against Scotland. All right, now we move on to Henry Pollard's England versus Max Jorgenson's Australia. We'll go first to Lisa B. I don't know how much you were able to watch this game. There was so much fun rugby to watch this weekend. Did you catch Max Jorgensen taking on England?
I caught the first half.
Mhm.
And yeah, we couldn't obviously watch the Barbarians, so this was kind of the lead up to the Springbok game. So caught the first half, and I was so I don't know. You guys are obviously not very strong in your Southern Hemisphere. I don't know, kind of hype or support. I'm always, if it's South versus North, I'm always behind the Southern team. Um, so I was quite disappointed. I had really high hopes for Australia. I thought this, especially also because the coach is leaving at the end of the autumn series, right? And so I felt like this is the perfect opportunity for them to really kind of build on those systems that they've been getting going and really kind of galvanize all of what they've been working towards. And I kind of feel like they let themselves down a little bit. But saying that, and it gives me absolutely no joy to say this, but England played really well. I would say the power game at this moment is now us, France, and England have showed that they want to play with the big boys. So I suppose credit to them. But yeah, only watched the first half and was disappointed in Australia.
Jean, would you describe Harry Potter's try as magical?
I'll refer to the cloak of invisibility.
Quite
Um,
an intercept, yeah.
yeah, no, great intercept, and I think at the end of the day, there's two ways to look at this game. The first way is to look from an Australian perspective. I don't think Australia even went into this tour with a conception of a Grand Slam. There's a lot of injuries, a lot of people not playing, and it's Joe Schmidt's it's his farewell tour. So I think a lot of it, and I think this is where, we might see a new DNA already being implemented, where the next coach is passing some stuff on, and Schmidt is trying to work that in and things like that. And, players are getting ready for Super Rugby, and it's a fluid situation. But I think from an Australian perspective, it's more about let's get the experience of playing against as many people as possible, win or lose, and see if our game plan works and doesn't work. And where it fails, then we know, right, this is it's sort of canceling out survivorship bias, right? To say, like, you could win based on a bunch of failures, and then you could interpret that as, oh, we won, so it must work. And then it's like, no, you got lucky. So I think in their sense of mind, I'm not saying it's a write-off. I'm thinking it's a learning tour. If we win, we're stoked, but we're here to learn valuable lessons, because last year they beat England. They had a couple of surprise victories on the end of year tour, and I think they walked away from that with some confidence that carried over into the Lions tour. This year, I think they're learning some hard lessons. England's kicking game was phenomenal. I dare say, um, kicking wise, it's a tight contest between us, New Zealand, and England right now. And we know we can boss New Zealand on a good day. Um, can we boss England? We're not going to find out this year. We might only find out next year. Their defense is super aggressive. If we do play them, the fly off will need to be steady and calm. You're going to need to work really hard to get past that defense. I'm sure Felix Jones will probably anytime around the 25th of Christmas, as soon as the Rassie Babalas is gone, start reviewing some footage and end up going down a YouTube rabbit hole again. But their defense is super aggressive, and very much like us in New Zealand and France, who are the four big dogs, I think, as Lisa stated, England have embraced the bench. Say what you want about Steve Borthwick, it he took his sweet ass time getting there, but they've embraced the bench. The way they're viewing the bench now is the way we view it. It's whether it's a hammer, whether it's a knife, whether it's a scalpel, the bench needs to have a purpose and it needs to serve that purpose. So I really think England is they're not going to be able to run under the banner of a dark horse going into the Six Nations and especially going into next year's end of year tour. The banner of a dark horse will be hard to put over them because they're definitely showing what they mean. I'm not sure if they play New Zealand this year, but it's a very interesting game if they do.
Yeah, Felix Jones would obviously have a particular motivation if when we eventually face England, having left us to join the England staff, but unfortunately not really liking the vibe there, and then returning to us, which is to our credit. I'm also impressed by England's willingness to pick that center combination. That was very sort of more progressive. Temikosi, what do you think Australia can actually take from this, considering they were missing four key players because this game did fall outside of the international official international window. So, namely, like James O'Connor.
I don't know what they can take. They didn't really play that bad. It's just that their combination kind of just didn't click the way they wanted to. I mean, half of the time they did have the ball. It's just that they could not penetrate the what is this? The England defense. Like every time they got the ball, I felt like they were caught behind the game line, and it just kept going back and back and back and back. So I don't know if that is mostly on the fly house, where the nine also can't basically move around the defense of England, and Edmund, who was it? Edmund, yeah, the 10. Yeah, Edmund also did not seem like he could, like you were saying with Potter, could not pull up something magical. I feel like that's what the difference between this game and the New Zealand game, where as New Zealand played on, they could pull off magical or individual plays that worked out, whereas Australia in this game could not do that. And I'm not sure if that is just a coaching thing or, like you guys saying, it's just mid-slots tour. It's the end of the year. I don't know what's wrong with Australia, but they didn't seem like they're really up for this game. Well, they were. It just didn't translate that into action.
All right. So those are the really major games. Some of the lesser games this week were Scotland versus the USA, where predictably Scotland gave the USA a donut. Worth looking at this game, considering how many South African-born players were involved. Dylan Richardson, former Shark. Duan van der Merwe, Aka van der Merwe's younger brother. No Kyle Steyn. There's a Kyle Rowe, though, so close enough. Um, Nathan Macbeth, somebody Temikosi should be familiar with, former Lion, and I'm sure there's some South Africans on the USA uh, team as well. As Jean alluded to, uh, the Stormers team in disguise with a few other guys mixed in there, like Asnati Kabakane, Bogi Manambi from the Sharks, I believe. Oh, good old Ollie Kebble, who recently returned to the Stormers. Yeah, the Barbarians went down to the New Zealand second team. What's notable for me, though, is the guys in the New Zealand second team that are on the fringes of the team. Unfortunately, since Razor took over, David Avilli's not quite been in form and or fit, so he's there and thereabouts. It's worth looking at sort of the guys who started lock for New Zealand, because that's a bit of an issue for them in terms of depth and experience. We'll see how that pans out. Bryden Inor, he's been in the mix a little here and there. Temikosi, your second team, anything stand out to you?
Uh, as you were kind of calling out people, I was about to say Ed, I think it was Kyle Preston. He came on as like the fly half from the bench, and also I think Josh Is it Josh? The 10. What's the 10's name?
Josh
Yeah, I think
from
he also.
Jacob.
Yeah,
Mm.
Jacob. I think he also played really well. I think he was also one of those players in the Finch where people are asking, "Are you gonna come through?" or "What's going on?" But to comment on the game, I think the Barbarians started really well. I think they started strongly, but as the game went, something went wrong where they just lost it, and New Zealand just kind of took over.
Yeah. Worth noting, Reno Smith, I hope he eventually gets capped by Italy. He was on the bench, came on in the 64th minute. Dan du Plessis inside center for the Stormers. Brad Weber, former New Zealand national as well. Batukane, soon to be Lion, current Shark. Should play a few more games for us again. Springbok, Cobus Visa, young guy, lock and or blindside flank. He was in the mix. Andre Hugo Venter, Rassie Rasmus's son-in-law, and good for Alifa Mark, veteran loosehead prop for the Stormers. Bernard Hoch, former Shark, Ulster, currently in Ulster, and then Bernard Janssens and Regensburg, Ben 10 as he used to be called when he was the Sharks, because he used to play 10. So yeah, interesting mix. Evan Ross got a try, good for him. These guys, I'm glad they're in England, sort of staying fit because we might have to call on them during the tour. Now we look ahead to next week's this coming weekend's games, and the standout ones only. So Japan, Ireland, that should be Ireland. Mikosi, the big one. Okay, Scotland, New Zealand. How do you think that's going to pan out?
Well, according to history, Scotland have never beaten New Zealand. So I think Reza would not want that in his book. He's already broken a lot of records that I think he doesn't want to his name. So I think he would also want to keep this one intact where Scotland have never beaten New Zealand. So my money is on New Zealand if I was a betting man, but I'm not.
Jean, I think Scotland have the backline players, but not the forwards. So how do you think this game's going to pan out?
I think Scotland has the attack, they don't have the defense. And to an extent in that sense, yes, they don't have the forwards. Scotland's biggest problem is they they I think without going into the demographics of the country and everything and having read what people say and spoken to some guys from Scotland, um rugby being what the second or third biggest sport there. Um, and don't get me wrong, Scottish people are as tough as they come. Um, Unfortunately, rugby is about size as well. You can be as tough as you want. Andre Esterhuizen weighs 120 and I'm sure runs the 100 meters in close to 12 seconds, 13 seconds. I'm not tackling that. Like I consider myself being able to hang on to things, but I'm not tackling that. So yeah, I think Murrayfield is historically the All Blacks' greatest fortress, and I think it will remain for another year. If there is, however, a Northern Hemisphere coaching ticket where the question mark is inflating really rapidly, I think it's behind Gregor Townsend, who has now been at the head of Scotland for going on 8 years, two World Cup cycles. Um, I cannot see Scotland suddenly developing into the type of powerhouse team that one breaks into the top three of the Six Nations in order to consider yourself a contender with the top of the Southern Hemisphere. Um, and two, I think forwards wise, we just robbed them of Buan Venter, who I'm sure they were so stoked to have. And we just sort of went, "Ooh, no, thank you." So yeah, I think when it comes to that, Scotland cannot match their forwards, and you need forwards on defense. That flankers, your eighth man, and your two locks are arguably your most important tacklers. They're the guys able to drive backwards. They're the guys you need making double hits. Um, and yes, there's an argument for centers there as well. But those five individuals out of the forward pack are arguably the people who stop the opposing team's possession and two challenge that possession on the ground. And I just don't see Scotland competing there. I'll be happy to be wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'll be very happy to be wrong. But I agree with you there. I don't think Scotland's competing.
Yeah, unfortunately, they just don't have the horses. However, I will be tuning into this game. It kicks off at 10 past 5 at South African time because I know Scotland will put up a fight, and it could be an interesting game. You never know. Immediately after that, we've got the appetizer to the South African game. It's England versus Fiji, and some might not think that this is going to be a competitive game, but Fiji have really rebuilt their team over the last few years, and many of their really, really good players are playing at a very high level now, both in Super Rugby and in the French top division. And they have access to all of those players. So, Lisa B, England versus Fiji, who would you got?
Wow. Yeah, let's not forget Fiji beating England just before the Rugby World Cup, right? So I think they are. I love watching Fiji. I think everyone does. So, but it is unfortunately one of those things of asking, okay, what Fijian team is going to show up, or how is their discipline going to be? Because the one thing that we did see, I think, in against Australia this past week is that as physical as they're being, despite was it our England's hero Pollock got the yellow card, but their discipline was quite good from England's side. So Fiji, it really depends, if they're going to be able to keep it together. I don't see them fronting up to the way that England played or England are playing at the moment, especially. It will be interesting to see the high ball if the Fijians can get under it and get away. They might do some magical things. It's definitely a game that's going to be interesting and fun to watch. But shout out also to Namibia playing their first qualifying game at 5:30. So it's going to be a really full schedule this weekend.
Oh, thanks for reminding us of that. Yeah. Pollock coming off the bench. Is he going to play 6 or 7? We don't know. 6, 7. But yeah, making quite a good impact. And then got the hair as well. Henry Pollock is like good for rugby in a sense, similar to Zulu, because their sort of popularity is going beyond rugby circles. Their
Yeah.
Q rating, as they call it, is getting massive.
But time out. Like, I'm all for players having personality and all of that and talk around them. But
Oh, there's no
being a
Max
little
Jorgenson, you say?
iter, well, being a little iter isn't exactly personality, is it? Like,
Oh,
I don't know.
what was doing that got under your skin? What-
Um, I don't know. I think it's not okay. So maybe it's not him. Maybe it's the hype
Mm,
that's getting under my skin more than the actual
ah,
person.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen I've seen some comments, but then I couldn't find exactly what people were talking about. He's quite the personality. I mean, he's got all the when he scores a try, he's got all the sort of celebrations afterwards, like the basketball thing and that type of thing.
I
But
don't
yeah,
mind that. I'm
yeah.
like cool with that.
Mm.
But yeah, the other stuff, I'm not a fan. Like the hype and the ooh, what's he doing now? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm to understand that he's also Mr. Steal Your Girl, so watch out for that. Then we go see Henry Pollock or the Fijians.
I think we all know my stance against England, but I really think England is going to win, considering that this season I think they lost their first match in the Six Nations, but from there they've won every single match. So I don't think Fiji stands that big of a chance. And considering the fact that they went to Argentina during July, and they had a second string team and it won. So is Fiji strong as Argentina? I don't think so. So I'm pretty sure England are gonna go away with it. But you never know with Fiji. You never know.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
could just
Fiji did
play.
beat Scotland during the Lions series, and Scotland were missing quite a few, one or two players due to being called up to the Lions and then injuries. So I think it'll be closer. For example, I found the New Zealand versus Ireland game enthralling because it was so evenly poised. It's not that I don't gain enjoyment from seeing South Africa basically do like a run out sort of practice match against Japan. And at points during the second half, when South Africa were beating Japan, I thought like, is this what it feels like to be a Leinster supporter? It's like you're just piling on the points and stuff like that. So I think we might get a competitive game there. And this game kicks off at 20 to 8 South African time. So I'll definitely try and tune in. So now we go through to the main event, the main course, if you will, and we'll go first to the person on the panel with a French name, Jean-Claude. Are you excited for South Africa versus France, the La Revenge, as you said a few weeks ago?
C'est l'opportune, le fucking huge. Enorme, enorme. I'm doing Italian hands. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm very much excited. I think it's going to be really interesting. Two coaches who are the wrong side of crazy like a bat. One with glasses, one without. Um, so yeah, I think it's very interesting in terms of depth. This is definitely the two teams I feel in the world right now who have the most depth, who've been building the best. And I mean, you can critique France all you want for sending B teams on summer tours. Um, they've got enough depth at scrum half. They can start a guy we've never heard of, and I'm guaranteed he will be competent. Um, and if he's not, I'm pretty sure they'll burn down the coach's house because if nothing gets the French riled up like being able to burn something down. Um, yeah, very excited. There is some commiserations on the situation. We won't be able to start our reliable guy at tight head. But I think, there's a case to be made here where we will settle for a good squad, and I think an extension of continuity from the squad that set the record against against New Zealand, the squad that hammered Argentina, getting that squad, getting them with that confidence, that ability to break the game open. Um, but I am wary of France being a very strong kicking team. They like to kick deep, and we don't have our scrum to fall back on because World Rugby nerfed us in the post Rugby World Cup update patch. So yeah, I think it's definitely an exciting game. I'm definitely staying awake for it. Uh, Coffee machines ready, no alcohol until the game starts. Gonna be nervous as all hell. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a cracking match. I really hope it does live up to the hype.
Yeah, 10 past 10 kickoff South African time can be kind of a little tough sometimes. There's lots of time to get stuff done and sort out the braai and everything. As Jean alluded to, let's say Hofaditswe, aka Ox and Chair, is unfortunately not available. He is our stalwart loose head prop, and also might have this injury might affect the Sharks quite bad as well. But hopefully Bowen Venter will step up, as well as probably Thomas Tanketoy might start at loose head prop, is my understanding. Themikosi, your prediction on this much anticipated game?
Well, I think it will depend on the team that we throw out. I'm really hoping that Rasi goes for, uh, shall we say, an experimental team where we just kind of are bringing in all the kids that we feel like are going to make the next World Cup and just kind of throw them in there and see if they will swim. if that is the case, I really hope that we win. But considering that France kind of been waiting for this game, I think I even saw who's this the Nine was on some news article saying that they were robbed. So I think they want to deal with the criminals that robbed them of their first World Cup or their chance of winning a World Cup. So they're gonna it's gonna be a tight match. It's gonna be a tight match. Even though that France is still missing their kind of like first choice players in certain positions, but I still think, like John said, they have the depth to kind of fill the gaps. So it's gonna be a tight game, but I'm just gonna back the box.
Lisa B, it's only fitting that we robbed France of their ability to win the World Cup when they robbed us of ability to host the World Cup. So what's your prediction?
Very true. This is the one game. So there were two games this year that I bought some adult diapers for. The first one was Eden Park. This is the second one. I think it's interesting, Temengosi, that you're for a experimental team, because the biggest plus that we're going to have on our side is that France is coming in cold. They have been playing, of course, in the top 14, but together as a team, this will be their first game. And so if we want to exploit that, I would actually go for our true and trusted kind of combinations that have played together. Now, that's another point to talk about, because we have been rotating so much. But in terms of like the backline, I would really hope Gaza is fit and ready. And I would actually go, I've been thinking about this all day, I would actually go for KLA and Colby on the wings, just because those three they just work so well together, and it's almost as if they're in each other's minds. And I think that playing players like that, who are so used to playing together and really being able to exploit France's maybe being a little bit less cohesive, I have an idea that that's where we might pip them, but it's going to be very, very close. But Boca all the way.
That brings us to the end of the episode. If you got to this part of the podcast, like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and comment bonjour in the comment section. From myself, Jean, Lisa B, and Tembinkosi, until next week, in Rassi, we trust.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.